Hey everybody, it's Cheri Dotterer from Tier 1 Interventions. Today, Jonily is going to uncover some new material. She didn't even tell me what this time. So, take it away, Jonily, and let's get started.
Mission accomplished. Mission accomplished. We are going to unpack exactly what that means in our first segment here of our live session today. Mission accomplished means I have done it. Here's the backstory, the very short backstory. I have not been teacher of record in about 14 years. I've been telling this story this year. If you're listening to this recording, this is December 2025. And as of August this year, I accepted a position to be teacher of record. And one of the classes that I teach is a high school Algebra 1. In the Minds on Math model, and the vehicle to get to that model is the Mastery Math method, Tier 1 interventions. We talk about one of our ultimate goals is to expose all content by winter break. So I'm here today to tell you mission accomplished. I'm also here to tell you today the breakdown and the buildup and the pre-planning, the planning, the presenting, the post-planning reflection that has happened to accomplish this mission. When I also say mission accomplished, we're going to talk about more of the mission and why we're on this mission. And one of the reasons is math scores, students liking to mathematics, students' understanding of mathematics, all of those things are dismal. We are in a very dangerous place in the United States as far as mathematics. And it's not even about the mathematics. It's about what we are able to do to the brain when doing mathematics. And I tell my students this all the time. What we're doing is not about the mathematics. It is about a brain training system to help support your success in life by being able to tap into parts of your brain that are going to lead you to the most success. All we're doing is using mathematics as the vehicle for that brain training. And the way that we're using mathematics as that vehicle in a typical traditional setting is not leading us to the success. And the result of that are very poor math scores. And there's no reason for it. We keep making excuses. Stop the excuses. We're doing mathematics teaching and learning wrong. That's the point of today. We're doing it wrong in K-12. So unless you're ready to unlearn and relearn, you will never accomplish the mission, which is scaling math achievement. Again, it's December 2025. My Algebra 1 students, my high school Algebra 1 students. Now I have to tell you, and you'll know this as an educator, if students took Algebra 1 in middle school, this is not the clientele that I'm talking about right now. If students did not achieve enough to take Algebra 1 in middle school, they take Algebra 1 in high school. This is a certain niche of kids. And I'm not stereotyping, I'm not bad-mouthing, I'm giving you facts. If you look at students' cognitive ability scores, if they've taken any type of standardized assessment, two of the popular ones are Terra Nova and Iowa. Students that have a cognitive ability of even 70th percentile and lower, and give or take. Some school districts, you can only get into Algebra 1 in middle school if your cognitive ability matches to like an 88th percentile and higher. So you're looking at 87% of your kids are not or should not be taking Algebra 1 in middle school with our typical traditional system. Now, I have to add that in. So when you get to kids that are taking Algebra 1 at the high school level, you're talking about all other cognitive abilities from percentiles of second and third percentile, maybe all the way up to 72nd percentile or 61st percentile. Average is 40th to 60th percentile. So when I talk cognitive ability and relate it to a percentile, we're not talking about a percent. We're talking about how you compare relatively. So with a percentile, 50th percentile is spot on in the middle average. If you consider weight and height when you go to the doctor, if your height is at 50th percentile, that means at your age level, 50% of the population is shorter than you, 50% of the population is taller than you. It's not saying that your height is good or bad. That's not what that percentile is saying. It's saying comparatively, you are spot on average at 50th percentile because half of everybody's shorter, half of everybody is taller. So when you look at that as the math perspective, 50th percentile, spot on average, good place to be. But what that means mathematically is half of the students know less than you, for lack of a better phrase, and half of the students know more than you. But again, not a bad place to be. So part of the achievement problem is understanding what the data leading to achievement means. And then the bigger part that we need to fix is what we do about that. So today I'm going to give you the secret sauce, the $1 million answer. I'm going to streamline it. I'm going to give it to you in a linear fashion. I'm going to tell you step 1, 2, and 3. It's going to be the exact model on how to design your school year to get these results. Don't worry. You're going to be like, oh, I'm listening to this in December and it's this half the school year's already gone. Okay, so you have next year. All right. So dabble in some things second semester. Try a few of these things second semester. But throughout this school year that you're currently in, I want you to use pieces of this secret sauce to design next school year. We also have a structure problem when we're mapping out our math year. And I'm going to tell you today how to fix that structure problem. And the structure that we place, you might call it a pacing guide, a textbook, a curriculum map, a scope and sequence. I'm not sure what verbiage you use to structure your year for mathematics. But we have a structure problem, and that structure problem is what's affecting the student's brain to actually initially learn the content and then be able to retain and remember the content from year to year is our structure. So whatever pacing guide, textbook, curriculum map, scope and sequence you currently have, I almost guarantee you that is the biggest problem. Now, I'm not saying get rid of your textbook, get rid of your pacing guide. I'm asking you, use all of those same resources. Do not destroy any of those resources you have, but I'm asking you to rethink the structure of how they go from beginning to end. The way that we facilitate instruction in a typical traditional math sense is an exact competing interest with how the brain actually learns. So textbooks are the same way. if we follow the textbook from beginning to end verbatim, you're going to get the kids that are in the 80th percentile and above to master everything. That'll work for them. It's fine. But what about the other 80% of kids that keep failing? This is the clientele I'm talking about. It is definitely a danger if we are using our textbook as our scope and sequence. Now, what you might notice so far is I'm saying all of the same things in different ways. And I've been very deliberate and intentional in my preparation for today to make note. And if you look at me, my eyes are always looking to my notes because I've been very deliberate and intentional today about making note and preparing exactly what I'm going to say, how I'm going to say it, and how I can say the same thing in multiple ways. So if that's what you're hearing, that's very purposeful. It's very intentional. So the secret sauce is that we must generate a map, pacing guide, scope and sequence, whatever you want to call it in your school district, that generates a support for exactly how the brain learns and remembers content. That's the outcome of the secret sauce. So, what is it that we have to do differently? The answer is a model that I call the novel model. So, write this down, make note of this. The novel model. The novel model is the guide to creating the structure and sequencing for your school year, for your grade level, for your course. But it also includes the structure and sequencing from K through 12. The outcomes of this model. Here are the outcomes of this model. By doing this model, you will be able to teach more in less time. The students will learn more in less time with higher retention rates, remembering from year to year. The outcomes are a stronger engagement and focus in math class, an increased confidence and independence on the student's part in mathematics, scaling automaticity and math fact fluency, combined with focusing on math fact fluency as it connects, associates, and relates to your grade level content standards. So math fact fluency is not on an island by itself. It is improved through connection to grade level standards. And ultimately, the final outcome. It's the final outcome. Da-na-na-na. A high level of number sense for all of our students. If you want your district to compete mathematically worldwide, the novel model is what you should use to support the structure of your mathematics curriculum and the instruction of your mathematics curriculum. Because not only do we have deficits in the structure, which is what we need to start with, we have a great number of deficits in instruction. Tier 1 interventions, let me make this connection. Tier 1 interventions is a learning tool for educators. Tier 1 interventions is strengthening the Tier 1 core classroom with a better structure, sequencing, and instruction for the regular general Tier 1 classroom. Tier 1 interventions is the Mastery Math method. But Tier 1 interventions, Mastery Math method are a piece of the novel model. So the novel model has many pieces and parts for educators and special service providers and parents and administrators and curriculum directors to learn. So if you want to follow the novel model, I'm going to share with you today all of the chunks. And one of my mantras, one of my mottos for mathematics teaching and learning is we plan and deliver in chunks rather than sequences. So the novel model is a bunch of chunks that are necessary to be a part of your scope and sequence, your pacing guide, your mastery map, your exposure map, your district map of mathematics. The novel model has a bunch of chunks, and some of them must be followed in a certain order, but some of them can be flexible in the order that they are given or structured for your school district. Tier 1 interventions, Mastery Math method, is one of the chunks. And it is very much in the first set of steps that you should be doing. So if you're like, oh no, but we want to start with Tier 2 and Tier 3 intervention. Wrong. That's one of the bottom line, non-negotiable parts of the novel model is that sequencing. Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions for mathematics, when we pool small groups and work with students, is not where we should start, and that is not what we should be fixing. The reason for low math achievement is a Tier 1 problem. So in the novel model, Tier 1 interventions is one of the first things that you should be doing as a district. If you're listening to this as a single teacher and you're like, I don't have a lot of clout in my district, I can't get my district to do this, so I guess I'm out. Oh no, my friend. I've been doing this as a single teacher for years. So when I started teaching 20 plus years ago, I taught 8th grade math. My district didn't do any of what I'm telling you. So when kids came into 8th grade, I started it right at the beginning of my 8th grade year. It can be done in 6 weeks, 3 months. This whole formula can be done in 1 year. Because the structure is about structuring 1 year with the idea that if we did this deliberately, intentionally, from every grade level and course from kindergarten through 12th grade, mathematically, that's just a bonus enhancement of achievement. But you can get there in 1 year. The novel model is about the 1 year planning. The pieces and parts of that 1 year, this is key. This is why this model is novel. The pieces and parts, many of the chunks of this model for the year, that your structure for the year, must be exactly the same for every single grade level. That's the unlearning, relearning part. That's the counterintuitive part. That's the part that's going to move the needle. And that's the part many of you are going to say, okay, I'll do everything else, but I'm not going to do that. That's the only part that really does move the needle. And I'll say it again. Many of the chunks, and I go to say most of the chunks for one school year, should be exactly the same for every math year, K-12. So remember that word chunks, because I'm going to define what these chunks are today. And then once the recording for what we give to you publicly is over, for those of you that are here live on Tier 1 Interventions Level 2, we are going to go back to the one chunk we've been focusing on this year, which is lockers, pizzas, rectangles, oh my. But then last month, we brought the rectangles into the first part of the chunk, rectangles, pizzas, lockers, oh my. And we started to really dissect the content standards, and we got through kindergarten, first, and almost into second grade last month, the specific content standards that relate to the chunk. This is why I'm telling you to remember the word chunk. The chunk, one of the chunks that I call making rectangles, and why that is so absolutely important as one of the chunks in all of K-12. And in the novel model, we show how that chunk progresses over time. Behind me, there is a question. And this is the essential question for the novel model. And the question is, what story are you telling mathematically? What math story are you telling? So as a single teacher, your year should be the novel. It should be the chapter book. You're designing and telling a story just like a novel does, just a chapter book does. So if you think of your school year in chapters, just like a novel is written, and let's suppose you have chapters 1 through 8. Now, this is different because I'm not talking about a textbook with chapters 1 through 8, because that's not written like a novel. Because everything in chapter 1 of a math textbook, if you didn't read chapter 1, do you really need chapter 1 for chapter 4? Sometimes and sometimes not. But in chapter 1, what happens in chapter 1 of a book novel? You start to introduce all the characters for the whole book, not just for this chapter. You start to introduce all the characters, the setting. The plot starts to evolve. That is not how a math textbook set of chapters is written. That's what I'm proposing it should be written like. So the novel model means planning your year as if you're telling this book's story. And this relates to what we talk about in the achievement formula, which is interactions over time. So as we're teaching mathematically, in our chapter 1 of our year, in our chapter 1, which we at Minds on Math call season 1, another name for that is first 15 days. So in our chapter 1, we should unveil pretty much everything that students are going to be exposed to during our entire course, but at a very minimal level, just like a novel book. And then we also have to think, what are the common themes that we're trying to develop throughout? And all of those themes need to be exposed to our students in season 1, in unit 1, in chapter 1 of our school year. So when you think about our textbook chapter 1, or your pacing guide unit 1, or your scope and sequence part 1, that is not how any of those things are currently designed. They do not include all of your content standards at the most basic level. But the novel model does. And this is why I say we have a structure problem. Now, we have an instruction problem, and we have a presenting problem, and we have a facilitation problem. But number one, first and foremost, we have to fix the structure problem in how we are designing our year.
Jonily, I want to close out Tier 1 Interventions podcast. And that is, if you are listening to this podcast and you are thinking How do I get involved? You want to head over to your show notes and click on the link. We are offering you to come to a session like this, where you get all 2.5 hours at one shot for $47. You can then join another session for another $47, or you can buy the whole year for $497. Plus, you have to buy if you're going to go buy the whole year, you're going to have to buy level 1 as well. But the coaching and these conversations that we're having are $497. That sounds to me like a really good deal so really think the way you're thinking about not just mathematics, but occupational therapy delivery, speech therapy delivery, special ed delivery, and how we're helping these kids rethink, re-regulate, relearn, and think about life as whole.
Good pause there to make that ending connection. Love it. All right, kids, I'm going to jump because I'm on a time schedule today. So I'm going to jump. If you guys have any other conversation, have at it. Love you guys. Oh my gosh. You're awesome.
I was going to sign off as well. You guys have a wonderful holiday.
You as well. Bye.
Bye.
Love you all.